Good afternoon. I'm MJ from Lioness Publications. And in this session, we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk is a creative person in a different type of creativity. He's not the type of person that creates a new product or an invention. Rather, what he does is takes something that's already created, and rather than thinking of where it can be in the next step, he looks 10 steps down the road. So, for example, with his movement into space, he didn't look simply at putting his satellites into orbit. He was thinking 10 years down the line of putting a man on Mars. So his thinking is a little different in that he has the long-term vision. And that is lacking in a lot of the corporate CEOs in today's climate. Their vision is usually limited to, a few years, maybe 4 or 6, but not 10, 20 years down the line. So I have a fond spot for him, and a lot of the reason he is that creative is he has a pretty powerful Uranus and Neptune and Jupiter in his chart. But that can also cause issues. Neptune can cause the drug addiction. Jupiter can be too optimistic. Uranus just too crazy. Now, on the drugs, it is a relatively known factor that he has health issues. I believe he was doing a jiu-jitsu move maybe a decade ago, and his back got severely damaged from that, and he's had a few surgeries. So he's been on drugs to control the pain. Now, I can't tell you whether there's other, drug use that's not involved with that, but sometimes when you are addicted to drugs for pain, you can easily take too much of it. So we're going to take a look at where Musk is now moving into up to about the fall timeframe. And I do want to note that he did have a falling out with Trump. He is naive to believe that because he helped Trump, that Trump would be a loyal friend. And he got very quickly disabused from that. And let's start off from there because he did have a little campaign to try and change Trump's mind. And of course, Trump turned against him. So what did he do? Well, right around 6/6, what we have is Saturn making a trine to Neptune. So what is that? It's a focus. The Saturn is a focus on long term. It's a focus on stability. It's a focus on making things stable. What is Neptune? Well, it can be drugs, can be escapism, but it's also sort of like relationships, mental ease. So he probably was very anxious about the fact that a person that he was literally in the same room with 24/7 for a few months, all of a sudden he wasn't seeing. So he was probably quite anxious about that. So he did want to calm the waters. And that's what he was doing right around that 6/6 time frame. Saturn was coming in to ease the tensions mentally that he was having. So he was trying to repair relationships. It doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. It doesn't mean that he always wants to be on Trump's side. But it's just at that time, that's what he wanted. Didn't hurt that Trump was probably going to hurt his companies, his contracts, if he didn't back down. So that's what he did. Now, let's move on to 7/5. And we're going to be doing the natal and the solar arc today. Jupiter will be hitting on his sun. Great. I mean, this is a conjunction with Jupiter and Sun. They are pretty nice to each other, which means the conjunction can bring great rewards. Brings opportunities into your life, makes you happy. In general, you have a renewed purpose in life. You're optimistic that things will work out. Now, it could mean that he's going to have a turnaround in his companies, meaning that all the damage he suffered while he was in Dodge, that might start to ease off now that he's no longer in the limelight, that he's no longer ripping apart the government. Now, he's going to have some lucky breaks, but as with Jupiter, and I've said this countless times, it can overinflate things. It can over-exaggerate. So he may actually overreach a little bit here, thinking that, yes, he can get all this stuff, and he can't. But he'll have plenty of other things. So it's not that it becomes negative. At least I don't see it in this fashion. But it just sort of like he can't get everything, but it's going to be a good time for him. Now, the next thing we have around 721 is we have Jupiter that's going to be squaring Uranus. It's right over here. It's a square. So that's stressful. What does that mean? Well, Jupiter is excesses, overindulgent, and Uranus is freedom. Seems like that might actually go okay together. It doesn't, though. It's a square. So, in effect, his need for freedom, in effect, is going to cause other excesses. So, in effect, he's going to need to change things. He's not going to have support to do that. He wants to limit any restrictions he has. And he could be sort of defiant in some ways. So, again, it's going to be trying to escape all the limitations he has, and in effect, Jupiter is spanning that even more. Now, after that, we're going to have Uranus opposing Neptune, which is right over here. So Uranus opposing Neptune. Opposition is conflict. So it's usually conflict with someone else. Now, in this case, that's going to be pretty jolting when you have an opposition. So Uranus, freedom, Neptune, Uranus, freedom, Neptune, the mind. So in effect, we set up mental structures in our head to deal with things, deal with life. And Uranus is going to come along and start saying, well, we don't need that anymore. So things he may have set up that are ways to protect him from mental anguish, all of a sudden stop being sort of thrown away by Uranus. Or it gets sort of said, no, we don't need that anymore. So this causes a lot of conflicts in that it's confusing. When you're confused, you act out against things. So there's going to be some unwise actions. There may also be episodes of what is reality here. So that can be a difficult type of configuration. And especially if he is someone that has back pain and he starts to use drugs. It could also mean that he says, okay, maybe I do have a drug problem. I'm going to do something about it. Now, the next thing we have is Uranus conjuncting Saturn. So it's not just conflict with your mental barriers. It's conflict now with his physical barriers, his structures in life. So in this case, what starts to happen is you start to have a collusion between disruption and structure. So in effect, any structure is going to be torn apart by Uranus. So it's going to be examining every single thing in your life that's a structure, that's a barrier. And it's going to try to move it out of your life. Okay? So you're going to want freedom from relationships, obligations. At this time, he actually may do sudden exits in life, where he just wants to not be involved with that anymore. So this is difficult in that it's going to be around the same time as this Uranus oppo Neptune. So that one, opposite Neptune, is 728, versus we have Uranus on Saturn at around 8-7. So again, it's sort of like everything comes together with Uranus, with the structures, and then it starts breaking them up. Now, around that time, around 8-9, Jupiter is actually going to be moving into the first house. And that's a time when he's going to have a lot of opportunities in his life. So things are going to seem very beneficial. It's going to seem very open. So whatever has been happening with the Uranus in his chart, that starts to simmer down a little bit. Not a lot, just a little. So he can actually have maybe a better view. Now, let's take a look at the solar chart, solar arc. And I want to take a look at two angles on this one. We have Uranus opposite Saturn. The natal chart had what? Uranus conjunct Saturn. So we not only have the conjunction, which is literally, just an intense personal configuration. We now have an opposition here, and this is in the solar arc. So this removal of structures is not only personally, it is across everything he's dealing with. So this could be something that's going to impact his companies. So in effect, this is like what he's created in life. He may be taking a jackhammer to it. So it could be an explosive period. Now, this is going to be happening at the end of June. So that's corresponding with quite a few of the other angles we have. And specifically June 27th. So that's coming up shortly. Now, we also have Jupiter, Inc. Venus, in conjunct. And that's the break and adjust. Now, this is indicating to me that he may, and that's happening around the middle of August, 8/13. This indicates that he may start to have issues with work. And specifically, it could be that contracts are not being renewed. So meanwhile, maybe the Trump thing seemed like it sort of moved away, but maybe it didn't. So maybe the government is putting their fine finger on this and not renewing contracts. So it indicates, and the reason I say that is that Jupiter is the ruler of the 6th house, and Venus, in this case, is the ruler of the 11th, and it's also the ruler of the 4th. The 4th is the house of endings. So endings of work type of objects could be one interpretation. But it does indicate that something, quick, something he doesn't have control of, happens around the middle of August. Now, we noted, again, the big force that Uranus is having, both in this chart and the natal chart. And Uranus, for someone that's creative, can, make things after these things sort of work their way through, make someone even more visionary. So it'll be fascinating to see where he is near the end of August, September, whether he has sort of managed to move past this, or maybe he's bogged down in some pain oriented type drug addiction. It could be also, the Neptune here, everyone has their mind constructs that keep us sane. It could be that Saturn, and Uranus specifically are breaking that up on him. So that could be difficult. So we'll come back maybe, around September, October. And like I said, I have a sort of soft spot for him. I think he got involved in George to really make a difference, or what he thought was a difference. And sometimes what we think is not what happens. And that's what I mean, the constructs. So he may be dealing with this. And that was one of the notations of, Trump's bill that was going to add so much to the deficit. So he is aware of money issues. And unfortunately, he did bring that up, and he was put down for that. So we'll see what happens with him. Have a great day now. Bye.